I'm going to try something new. This is going to be a bit more of an opinion series, if I make more than one video like this, that is. And recently I've been sort of experimenting with VR chat, so that got me thinking about PlayStation Home. Now, PlayStation Home has been dead for quite a long time now. You can call it a bit experimental, at least in Sony's case. There's definitely stuff like, at the time, Second Life. PlayStation Home was really the only one I had tried, and that was because of the low barrier to entry. With PlayStation Home, all you needed to do was install it and run it on your PlayStation. Very simple, very low barrier to entry. Now, PS3 had a lot of stuff like this back in the day. This was before everything sort of got set in stone, where now you have your Netflix app, you have your YouTube app, and whatever your music is. Back then you had PlayStation Home, you had folding at home, unrelated of course, and this was kind of a neat time. Now, what more or less PlayStation Home really boiled down to was sort of like a interactive ad space. And in my opinion, that would end up being its downfall. But at the same time, despite being sort of this ad-centric joint, it was still rather neat. Now, of course, it was my first time ever in that sort of just general chat realm, but what was neat about PlayStation Home is that it had a lot of activities that were fully realized and quite a lot of people on screen at once. In my experience of VR chat, while the technology is very cool and definitely the avatars and their movements are way more advanced than PlayStation Home, there simply isn't as much to do in it. At the same time, it's at like what, 0.12 alpha or whatnot. But even back then, I believe when I was in PlayStation Home, it was still in beta. I'm not really even sure if it ever got a full release. So in PlayStation Home, you had all these spaces like, well, VR chat and whatnot. And all these were, again, ad-based. You'd have your, I remember IREM had a space that advertised all their games. I believe NIS America had a space. And these were rather neat. Uncharted had a place. In fact, one of my favorite places to go was Sully's Bar. And where you have like 30 people just hanging out in this little bar. And it ran well, which is something I can't say for VR chat. I have trouble running that game, game, it's not really a game. I have trouble running that program with more than 15 people on the screen at once. Now, of course, there's a lot more going on with the characters, you know, full, like, basically lip syncing and movements. PlayStation Home was more simple in that regard. But it was still neat. You had random people talking to each other, you had activities, you could do stuff with these people. Like, I remember one person I'd meet up with every day for a little while there to play chess with. A couple things I really remember is the bowling alley was a ton of fun. The bowling was, well, serviceable. I mean, it's hard for me to say. I had fun doing it, but I imagine that it wasn't quite that deep. Wii bowling was more fun. The Wii Sports collection, what have you. Now, at the same time, on the concept of catfishing, I'm not sure if it was more or less than, say, like something like VR chat. The thing about VR chat, and at the time, Xbox Live, is that everyone had mics. Like, well, I shouldn't say everyone in VR chat has mics, but for the most part, you see like a little anime girl with like a big burly man's voice. You know what you're getting. At the same point in PlayStation Home, not the case. In that you're mainly communicating with, well, text and controllers. I had a keyboard. I know a lot of people had keyboards for that. But for the most part, it was more basic than, say, VR chat is in that regard. I also had a Bluetooth headset, but it wasn't like, say, at the time, this was before, I think, party chats. If you hopped on an Xbox Live game, everyone had a mic. And I bring up the catfishing element in regards to one experience I had in the bowling alley, and I think there was like a billiards area. And I want to say that this was not catfishing, it was just sort of an unusual sort of conversation. And I think because it was unusual is why I wouldn't say it was catfishing. I was playing pool with this person, and they were talking to me, and she was talking about how old she was, and I was like, oh, I'm the same age, and she was talking about her kids, and she was asking me if if I had kids, and I was like, at the time, I mean, I was pretty young, so it was just sort of like this unusual sort of situation that I'd never run into. Of course, nowadays at work, I sort of run into it constantly, and it's a lot less amusing now than it was back in the day. Now, where PlayStation Home kind of fell apart is the whole microtransaction system. So when it was first coming out, I believe a couple of things that was mentioned was you had your own space, like your own apartment, and one of the ideas was you unlock a trophy in a game, since trophies had recently been added, I want to say, because trophies didn't come out with PlayStation 3 at launch. But the idea was that you could line up your walls and show off trophies you had. I don't believe this ever came out, actually, at least not when I played PlayStation Home. But what did was the ability to purchase outfits and props with real money. As you can see, this is a problem some years down the line, as in the grand scheme of things, PlayStation Home didn't last for that long. So all this money is wasted. Now this is definitely an increasing problem. So while you're buying something relatively tangible within the social space, now that that's gone, all that is gone. Now it would have been much more cool if, say, in say the IREM spaces or the other spaces, what have you, is that if you did like mini games and then you unlock stuff. And there might have been some of that, but there's definitely more of trying to get you to go to the mall to buy a outfit and stuff to populate your apartment. So my apartment didn't have anything in it. And going to other people's apartments, they also didn't have anything in it. Now I did try to jump back into it near the end, and I'd go to Sully's bar, and keep in mind there really wasn't that many social spaces left or around. A few were added here and there, but even going back there, I was pretty much the only one hanging out in that space. There was still some traffic in the bowling alley and sort of like what counted as the hub, which was like this fountain area, and the mall, but definitely wasn't that many people left, so it was easy to see why it got shut down. It's kind of sad that it died, but at the same time, I didn't stick around, and I imagine that for the same reason, this is also why a lot of others didn't stick around.